Good evening, everyone. I'm Tanya Agarwal, PR and content writer at Girlscript Punjab. On the behalf of our regional head, Mr. Amitesh Mani Tiwari, entire core team, and all the chapters, I feel pleased to welcome you all on today's event. As promised, we are all set to make your event productive, and to help us with that, we have with us our keynote speaker, Mr. Sahaj Oberoi. Sahaj is a Python developer, GirlScript Yay Python mentor, and a YouTuber. So, without taking any more of your time, let's get started with day one of Python, where we'll be covering Python basics. Hope you guys will enjoy. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tanya, for the introduction, and I really want to thank GirlScript for bringing me today and giving me this opportunity to speak on Python and conduct this bootcamp. So I'm really glad to be here, and I hope everyone who is watching this will learn a great amount of you know things about Python and also will make a good project tomorrow. So I am really looking forward to a great event.
Hope for the same.
All right, so I'll share the screen now. And to everyone who is watching this now, so I'll consider that you have never studied Python before, and I'll be going through the pure basics. Like, I'll start from the beginning. So obviously, since we have limited time, I just have like 1.5 hour today, so I'll not be telling you how you can install Python or stuff like that. The basics today will be done on an online Python compiler. Okay, so that everyone can be on the same node. Like, even if you don't have your Python installed in your system, we can still be on the same node by making the current thing on the online Python compiler. All right, so let's just open this compiler. So the website name is onlinegdb.com, online Python compiler. All right, and this is the online compiler for today. And tomorrow we will probably be using Python idle, okay, which is the default code editor for Python. When you install Python, you already get a Python idle, which is their default code editor. So to begin with the workshop, so we will be starting with the very basics of Python, right? So to begin with that, let's see what is the interface of this particular website. Okay, so this area is where you write your code. Okay, you write your code, you edit your code. So that's the area for that. Okay, and this particular area below, this is where we will be getting our output. Okay, whatever code will be execute written here, the execution and the output for that will be present here. All right, so I think this much basic is clear. And by clicking on this run button, this the code written here will be executed, and like after that, the output will be displayed here. So let's just jump into the basics now. So let's start with the very basics. So I'll be telling you how you can print something on the output screen. Okay, so this below part where the output is displayed, you can call it a console window or an output screen, right? So for that, you just have to write print. Okay, so print keyword is basically used to display something on the output screen, and then you have to open and close the parenthesis here, and inside this you have to write something. Okay, so for example, I just write a number. So this number will be displayed here. Similarly, if I want to display a name, what I can do is I can write the name in double quotes or single quotes also. So this name can also be displayed here in the output screen, as you can see. Okay, so uh, let's now discuss what are the basic data types in Python. Okay, so the first data type, let me zoom the screen. So the first data type would be integer. Okay, so in integers, basically the normal numbers come up, like all the negative numbers without decimal, 0, and all the positive numbers without decimal. So all those numbers can come inside the integers. Okay, all of these numbers come inside integers. Now the next one is string. Okay, so string in Python is represented by str, and everything which is inside double quotes or single quotes. So if I write my name in double quotes, or like if I write Python, and even if I write a number in double quotes or even single quotes. Okay, so even single quote work. So the everything that is written inside single quote or double quote, that is considered as string in Python. Okay, and even a number can be considered as string if you put double quotes around it. So that's all about strings. Now we have float also. Okay, so float. So in float, you basically have all the negative numbers which are with in decimal, sorry, which are with decimal, and all the positive numbers with the decimal. So for example, minus 1.234. Okay, anything like that is part of float. So all the numbers with decimal are part of float. All the numbers without decimal are part of integer, and everything that you write inside double or single quotes, okay, that is part of string. Now you also have Boolean. Okay, so Boolean basically means true or false. Okay, so there can only be two possible values for Boolean data type. Either it can be true or it can be false. Okay, so just like real life, true basically means correct, and false you can imply as incorrect, which is something incorrect. Okay, so that can be implied as false in very basic terms. So we now know the basic data types. So let me show you once how we can print all of them. So I have already shown you about numbers like this. Okay. So I've already shown you this one. I've also shown you the strings once. So if I write Python in single quote, this also gets printed on the screen. And similarly, the Boolean. So Boolean does not require any double quotes or single quotes because it's a data type of its own. If you write, true inside double quotes, so it actually becomes a string. But if you remove the double quotes or the single quotes, basically, it becomes Boolean. Okay, so if you want to check the type of the data that you are basically working with, so the function for that is called type. Okay, type, and you open and close the parenthesis, and whatever you want to check the type for, you can basically put it here. So if I write uh type here, and I write true inside the type function, right? So let's see what we get. The output, we get class bool. So basically it means to say that this particular data that we have put here in the parenthesis of type function, this is a Boolean type of data. Okay, and similarly if I pass a string here, okay, so you can check that it gives as class str, which basically implies that it is a string because we are using double quotes. If I remove the double quotes, it becomes an integer, and if I put a decimal around it, then it becomes a float value. All right, so these are just the basics of data types in Python, because when you start with the programming language, you first of all need to know the data types. So that's what we just learned. Now we can see like what are variables in a programming language, not just in Python but in general programming language. What are variables? So variables can be thought of as a container, or basically a temporary storage thing which is storing your data. Okay, so if I write x is equal to 10. Okay, so just like in maths, we might have studied in maths, like we take sort of a variable only, that the number of mangoes is equal to m, which is equal to which is equal to 20, for example. So similarly, in programming languages also, we have a variable which can be used to store some data temporarily. All right. And what's the working behind this variable? So basically, you have a, let's say, this is the memory of your computer. Okay, and in this memory you have various memory spaces. Okay, and each of these memory blocks or memory spaces have their own address. Okay, so it can be thought of like, you have a colony or you have a flat. Okay, like this also looks like a flat only, this particular picture. So let's assume this whole rectangle is a flat, and all of these boxes are windows. Okay, let's just assume. So uh, consider these windows as a particular home. Okay, particular home in this flat. So each home basically has its own address, right? And similarly, memory blocks also have its own address. Okay, so if I write x is equal to 10, okay, then what happens is, somewhere in the memory block 10 is stored. Okay, 10 10 gets stored somewhere in the memory block, and whenever I call x, okay, so it will basically imply to this particular memory block and display the value stored here. All right, so that's the whole concept behind variables in Python, like how variables work in Python. So basically, if I print x, then this value will be used. Okay, because x is storing this particular value in the memory block. Okay, so if I run this, you can see 10 was printed even though we were printing x only. All right, so I hope this is clear to you all now, and we can basically store any type of value in variables, and there are certain rules for writing the variables, of course, that we cannot start a variable with a number. Okay, so this is one of the rules. So if I try to run this one, you will see that I got invalid syntax because a variable name cannot start with a number. Certainly, it can have a number inside it, but it cannot start with a number. So if I write x 1 to 3 as the variable name, then it will surely work. So if I run this now, you can see that 10 was printed. So this didn't give us any error. This is working perfectly. So you can have numbers inside a variable name, but it should not start with the number. Okay, it should always start with an alphabet only. So if I want to use symbols like underscore, okay, then also this will surely work. But what if I start a variable name with underscore? This also works, right? But what if I use some other special symbol like dollar? Okay, dollar, let's say we use dollar symbol. Does it work? No, it doesn't work, because special symbols other than underscore, they don't really work in the variable names. Okay, so some basic rules are that you have always have to start a variable name with a I would say with an alphabet or an underscore, and you can have numbers inside a variable name, but they should always be after an alphabet. Okay, because the variable name always has to start with an underscore or an alphabet. So this was all about variables. Now we need to learn little bit about operators, like what are operators basically. So just like in maths we have plus, minus, multiply, divide, right? So similarly we also have plenty of operators in Python and other languages also. So operators like this arithmetic, so plus, minus, multiply, and this is the symbol for divide. All of these come under arithmetic operators. So there are a lot of operators, and there is category of operators as well. So under arithmetic operators you have these four operators which you are already familiar in normal maths, daily life maths. We additionally have some other operators also, like modular symbol, which is basically to calculate the remainder, and we have double forward slash in Python as well. This is something which is not really common in other languages. So this is to calculate only the quotient. Okay, so if you basically divide 5 with 2, so what quotient do you have? You have 2, right? And you have remainder 1. So if you want to calculate 5 modulus 2, then you will get 1 as the answer. If you write 5 double forward slash 2, then you will get 2 as the answer. Okay, so I'll quickly show the operators you are not familiar with. So let me just give a quick example with plus operator also. So this gives us 4. Now if I write 10 divided by 2, then you notice that it gives 5.0. Okay, it gives 5.0. And if I write 11 here, uh 1 second, we might need to refresh this page. Yeah, so if I write 11 divided by 2, again we will get answer in decimals. We get 5.5, right? And what if I write double forward slash? So we will get only the quotient. We will not get the decimal part, right? Because we don't get complete answer. We get only the quotient with double forward slash. So if I run this now, we get 5 as the answer. And similarly for modulus, we get only the remainder. So if I write modulus here, 11 modulus 2, so I'll basically get 1, because when you divide 11 by 2, you get remainder as 1. Okay, so this was just the basics. And you have assignment operators, you have logical operators, you have comparison operators as well. So let's discuss comparison operators very briefly. So as the name suggests, they are used for comparisons, right? So for comparison, we have double equal to, we have not equal to, we have less than, greater than, less than equal to, sorry, greater than equal to, less than equal to. Okay, so symbols like these are considered as part of comparison operators. So what does double equal to really mean? Okay, so double equal, like in Python or many other programming languages also, single equal to is for assignment. Okay, so basically if I am writing x equal to 10, I am assigning the value 10 to this variable x. Okay, whereas if I write x double equal to 10, then I'll be checking whether the value stored in x, okay, so let's say x is equal to 20, right? So I'll be checking by this expression whether the values that is stored in x is equal to 10 or not. Okay, so here we are basically comparing the values of the variable x and the value 10 itself. So if I print this thing here, so you will basically get false, because this is incorrect statement. And similarly, if we actually had x is equal to 10, then we get true here. Okay, and you can directly compare the values also. So it's not necessary to compare the variables. So if I write 10 here, then also it will give us true only. All right. Now we have not equal to, which basically reverses the role. Okay, so not equal to checks if these two values which are kept on left side of the operator, this is the operator and this is left side of the operator. Okay, so the left side value and the right side value, if they both are not equal, then it returns true. So in this case, since 10 is equal to 10 and the operator that we are using is not equal to, we will get false as the answer. Okay, and similarly then we have greater than and less than, which you guys already know. from basic maths, that if you basically have the left value here and the right value here and you are using the greater than symbol, so it will check is 20 greater than 10 or not. Okay, if it is greater than 10, then print true. Okay, and if it is not, then it will basically print false if the situation is something like this. Okay, so in this case it will print false. All right, so these are the like comparison operators. Now I'll quickly show you greater than equal to operator. Okay, so in greater than equal to operator, two things happen. Okay, so firstly it will check is 10, like it will basically check the left side object and the right side object. Okay, so is the left side value greater than the right side value? So in this case obviously this is false, right? So the answer for this particular part is false. But since the operator is greater than equal to, then what it will do, it will also check if 10 is equal to 20 or not. Okay, if it is still false, then ultimately you get false as the answer. Okay, the final output will be false. But if either of these statements is true, then we directly get true as the answer. So for example, instead of 20 here, we had 10 only. Sorry. Okay, instead of 10 here, sorry, we had 30 here. Then the answer would be directly given as true. Okay, but let's assume this is still false. Okay, this thing still holds because we have 20 here also. Okay, so left and right side both are 20. Okay, then this thing also becomes false. But at this point we have 20 is 20 equal to 20? Yes, it is. So instead of false we get true, and ultimately the true answer will be printed. Okay, so let's just run execute this thing. So if I write this particular statement, I execute this, then I will get false as answer, because 10 is neither greater than 20 and nor it is equal to 20, right? But if I write 20 here, okay, both left and right side both have 20, then we will get true, because 20 is not greater than 20 but it is equal to 20. Okay, so I hope everything that I'm saying is making sense so far. And these are basically your comparison operators. Then we will move to logical operators, which are also quite helpful. So in logical operators, we are basically having and, or, and not operators. Only three operators are present in the logical operators. So let's talk about and operator, right? So if I write print and here I write and operator. Okay, so we will write one expression towards the left of and operator and one expression towards the right of and operator. So let me write 10 greater than 5 and 10 greater than 3. Okay, so I have written two expressions here. One I have written 10 greater than 5 and another I have written 10 greater than 3. So what AND operator does is it evaluates the left side operation and it also evaluates the right side operation. If both the left and the right are true, then it will return true as the answer. Okay, if either of them is false, okay, so let's assume it was 15 here, it was 15 here instead of 10, then this part becomes false, right? So for that case, in that case, this becomes false, this becomes true, then it still gives false as the answer. Okay, and if it was reverse situation, that this expression was true and this was false, then also it would give false. Okay, and if both are false, okay, if both the conditions are false, both of them are false, then ultimately also it will give us false answer. Okay, so AND operator basically gives you true only and only if you have both the conditions as true. Okay, both the expression evaluate as true, or both conditions on the left and right side are true. Now let's move on to the OR operator. So the situation basically changes little bit in OR operator. Okay, in OR operator, just a moment. All right. So in OR operator, you have left expression also and right expression also. So the syntax is kind of same only for OR operator and operator, but the difference comes that if the both conditions are true, okay, both the conditions are true, then the answer will also be true. Okay, so the ultimate result will also be true. If either one of the condition is false, still the final answer will be true. Okay, so if the first is false and the second is true, or if the first is true and the second is false, both of them result as true answer only. So what if the both conditions are false? Then the final answer will be false. Okay, so the contrasting difference between AND operator and OR operator is that AND operator returns true only if the both conditions are true, otherwise it always returns false. Whereas the OR operator, it always returns true until and unless all the conditions are false. Okay, so that's the simple difference between and OR operator, and I hope everything that I have said so far is making sense. And if you still have doubt in something, just put it in the chat section and they shall be cleared ASAP. Once I go through this, either in next 15-20 minutes or by the end of the session, we will be discussing all the doubts that are come up in the chat section. All right, so just put your doubt in the chat section, don't be hesitant. We are all just learners and beginners, so it's good to question the person who is teaching you. Okay, it's always good, because that means that you are curious and you are actually learning and your mind is constantly working. If you are just blind, you are having blind faith, then that's not never gonna work. You should always ask doubts. So I hope you guys put your questions in the chat section. Now logical operators are discussed, arithmetic operators are discussed, and even the comparison operators are discussed. So these are the three main operators. We also have we can say we also have assignment operators. Okay, so that's not really necessary. If we have time at the end, I'll explain them. And one of the arithmetic operators I missed was a double asterisk. I just remember I missed this arithmetic operator. Okay, so this is to calculate the power of a number. So let's say in normal mathematics, if you have this expression, okay, 2 to the power 3, so you basically evaluate as 8, because this particular expression basically means this particular expression basically means 2 is multiplied to itself this exponent number of times, right? This is the exponent. So similar expression, if you want to write in Python, what you have to do is you have to write print, okay, then the base basically, and then the exponent. So this whole thing is the power, and if you run this now, you will get 8 as the answer. Okay, because this expression 2 double asterisk 3 is the same expression as 2 to the power 2 to the exponent 3. Okay, whatever you want to say. So these expressions mean the same thing. And again, this particular expression basically means that this particular number, which is the base, is multiplied to itself these number of times. Okay, so this is just the basic maths concept again. So I forgot this particular arithmetic operator, so I just thought of bringing it up again. Now let's move to conditional statements. Okay, what are conditional statements in Python? So conditional statements Basically, as the name might be suggesting you guys, that in conditional statements you have some condition, and on the basis of that condition you basically have to give some output. Okay, so let's say uh, a number has been given to you, and let's say the number is 11. Okay, so you basically have to print odd on the screen if the number is odd, and if the number is even, you have to print even on the screen. Okay, so there are two conditions, and for different conditions you have different output. So those types of things can only be covered using conditional statements in Python. Okay, so conditional statements are basically if else statements, or if elif else statements. Okay, so we will be learning about the conditional statements now. So if the syntax for that is if, then the condition, then the colon symbol. So this colon symbol is very necessary, and then you just press enter and you write some statements that have to be executed if the statement is, if the condition is true. Okay, so that's the basic syntax. And if the condition fails, then you have this particular block. So I'll just explain this whole thing in a moment. All right. So this is the basic syntax of if else condition in Python. You have if keyword, you have a colon symbol, and in between them you have this condition, which is the main thing. If this condition is true, okay, if this condition is true, so the condition is basically an expression, right? If the condition is true, then all of the statements that are written here, all of these will be executed. Okay, and if the condition is false, if this condition is false, then these none of these statements will be executed, and the command of Python will shift to these statements written here after the else keyword. Okay, everything will come up to this point. Now, how does Python really understand like which set of statements belong to if block only, and which set of statements belong to else block only? So for that we have indentation. So I'm sure you guys could see that there is some gap here, right? There is some gap here, and this gap is roughly 4 spaces. Or if you press tab button on your keyboard, that will equate to the proper indentation. So what is indentation? Indentation is set of spaces. Okay, set of spaces that are basically used to define a particular block. Okay, a particular block of code. So what 1 second, what I really mean by this is that right. So for example, we have if block. Okay, so this is not indented, so basically this does not have any set of spaces before that. So this is the part where we write the condition. We are checking the condition if it's true or false, right? Then we want some statements to be executed. So we want to basically create a block of code, that this is the set of statements that have to be executed when the statement is true. Okay, and if the statement is false, then we have defined an else block. Okay, that if this whole is false, then none of the above statements will work, and if it is false, then we have created another set of statements that these many statements have to be executed. So for else block also, we obviously need to define indentation, so that the block of code is clear that this much block of code comes under the else block. Okay, and basically if I write something here like print output, let's say this. So what will be the workflow of this whole execution? Okay, so first I'll tell if the statement is true, then I will tell if the statement is false. So basically as you can already notice, there is the difference of indentation. This particular statement does not have any indentation, the print statement. Okay, this does not have any indentation. So this already can tell you the difference, that this particular statement, this does not belong to the block of else block. Okay, this does not belong to the else block, and this statement is different from the statements in the else block. All right, so basically let me go through it once, and I think then it will become more clear for you all. So if the condition is true, okay, if the condition is true, then all of these conditions, sorry, all of these statements will be executed. Okay, and none of the statements will be executed here. And then whatever code has been written that is not the part of the block of if, that will be executed. So this particular statement is not part of the if block, right? So this statement will be executed, and other statements also that come after this statement, those will be executed. Okay, because this is out of the block of if block, because it does not have indentation. So again, indentation is just a set of spaces that is used to define a particular block of code. Okay, that comes under for this example, the block of code comes under the if statement or the else statement. And we also have else if sorry elif, which we'll be discussing later. And we also have functions which can be defined. So those basically use indentation to easily define a block of code. So if you are familiar with other languages like C, C++, Java, they instead of using indentation, they use curly braces. So if I want to basically define a set of code, they, the structure for their work is something like this. Okay, they define the block of code using this curly braces, but instead of curly braces, here in Python we use indentation. So I hope this thing is clear. Now let's yeah, if the condition is false now, if this condition is false, so none of these statements will be executed, right? And the command will move on to the else block. So all these statements will be executed, and after that, whatever code is written that is not part of the else block, that will be executed. Okay, so the indentation ends here, and it will come back to this normal alignment of the code, and it will execute all those lines of code that comes after the else block. Okay, so for this case only one statement is there, so it will execute this. All right, so to see more practical view about if else conditions, because obviously the theory never helps you, right? Until and unless you see the live example, that is, basically practical example, then only you understand the things better. So let's move on to a practical example for the same. um, so again, I'll take the example of odd and even number only. So if you have been given an odd number, okay. So let's say the number is n, and you are given a number 21. Okay, and you want to basically check if the number is even, then print even. If the number is not even, so basically it means it's a odd number, then print odd number. Okay, so that's our task for now. Okay, a very basic task. So what type of condition can we write for this? Okay, so first of all we will write if, we will write the colon symbol, and in between them we will write some condition. So what condition can we really write for this thing? So I'll just give you a few seconds, and I'll suggest you to think about it. Like, everything that has been taught so far is going to be used here for solving this problem. Okay, so just give yourself a moment, think about the answer, and write it in the chat section. So my way of solving the problems actually is just a second. Yeah, so my way of solving the problems is always that I basically solve a problem by dividing the problem into small steps. Okay, so first our problem is to basically think of a condition which is suitable to find whether a number is odd or even, right? So the simplest way to check whether a number is odd or even is you basically check if the number is divisible by 2. Okay, so if the number, that is n in this case, is divisible by 2, so obviously the remainder will be always 0. So if the number is divisible by 2, then the remainder should be 0. Okay, so this much part that I have highlighted is calculating the remainder, and that particular remainder is being checked with this, whether the remainder is equal to 0 or not. Okay, if the number is divisible by 2 and gives remainder 0, then obviously the number is an odd number. And if the condition is false, then we need to write else block, and here we will write the number is odd. Okay, and we can write as many statements as we want to write under the if block, and as many statements as we want to write under the else block. But here in this case we need only one print statement for either of these blocks, because we want to only print whether the number is odd or even, right? So let's just run this, and it says the number is odd. Okay, and if I change the number, if I make it 200, then it still will say that it's an even number. Okay, so our code is working fine, and the number limitation is not really as such. It can take large numbers also. For example, uh, let's take this huge number, which is obviously gonna give the answer as even number. But the point is, uh, it can also take large numbers, and if I make it a large odd number, then also it should be able to check it. And as you can see, just in a fraction of seconds, it gives the output as odd number. So this was one basic example of how we can check basic implementation of conditional statements basically. And now let's move on to another example which will basically even more help you have a better grasp over this topic. So let's make a basic calculator. Okay, a basic calculator which will take input from the user. Okay, so since we need input from the user, now I'll be also teaching you how you can take input from the user. So um, to take input from the user, you basically need to write input and just the opening and closing of parentheses, that's all. And since we obviously want to store the value, so let me write it here and then print n. Okay, so when we run this, you can notice that here the cursor is blinking. Okay, and nothing is being displayed really. But why is this happening? We are not even getting any error, we are not even getting some output. But why is this happening? Because this cursor is blinking, right? So why is it blinking? It's blinking because the program is asking for the input from the user. So in this case, we are only the user and we are only the coder or developer. So it's basically waiting for the input. Okay, so if I write 100, it shows 100. If I run this again, and if I write my own name, it will print my own name. So that's how simple it is to take input from the user. But if someone is just a beginner, then it might be confusing for them, right? That the cursor is blinking, there is no error, there is no output getting displayed. So let's just say that you are asking your parents to, use your Python code for something, and they get this blank screen and they are just confused. So to make it more user friendly, what we can do is we can type some message here. Okay, so let's say you want to ask for the age. Okay, so, or let's just take the previous example for taking a number from the user, for checking if it's odd or even number. So we can write some message inside the double quotes, because obviously you need to pass a string for a question. So we can write enter a number. Okay, simple statement. And let's just run now and let's see the difference. So now the cursor is still blinking, but you have something, you have some idea like what you have to enter. Okay, otherwise when only the cursor is blinking without any message, then the things become confusing, right? So that's something which you should focus on, that you should make everything very user friendly, right? Just the way I'm trying to make things very much easier and basic for you to understand. So now the person can enter their age easily, right? So this is how you can take input from the user. But there is an issue with the default input taken by the uh, Python. Okay, so everything that you input here, that is really a string. Okay, even if you entered a number here, it will still be considered as a string, because let me show you an example. So I already told you about the type function, right? It basically checks the data type of the value or the variable that you have entered inside the parenthesis of it. So if I pass the variable n here, so it will be checking what type of data the variable n is storing inside it, right? So if I run this, let me enter a number. I have entered 10,000, but it still shows string to me. Okay, so the reason behind this is everything by default is taken as a string in Python. So to change it and use it as a number, because obviously if you want to write the full code for checking whether a number is even or odd, you cannot really divide a string. Okay, you cannot really check the modulus of a string, because that way it will give an error. So to show that it will give an error, let me comment this. So comment is basically that where whenever I write hashtag here, okay, so this line will get commented. So it means that this will not be considered as part of code. This is just a comment to maybe help you explain your code. Okay, or maybe you want to test your code, and you are basically um you want to exclude some lines of code, so you just wrote hashtag so that this line of code can be commented and you can just go on with your work. So that's comment. So what was I saying earlier? I guess it was about the input only, like how we can change the input. Yeah, so I was showing you that we get an error if we divide a string. So if I write 1000 and if I want to divide this by 2 and check if the remainder is 0 or 1 or something like that, it will give me an error because it's a string. Okay, so it gives me an error, right? So that's the issue, and we obviously need to change this particular number that is given by the user as a as an integer. Okay, from string to integer. So for that, what we can do is, there is a thing called typecasting. Okay, so basically you can change the type of data that you have. So by default we are getting a string, but we can change that string into an integer. So how we can do that? You just have to write uh, let's say n is equal to int. Okay, and you need to write in the parenthesis what thing you have to convert from like for this example, from string to integer. Okay, or from float to integer. Okay, so that thing can be passed here. So for our case we need to pass n only here, because we want like this particular expression, at this point n is going to store string value. But if we write this particular statement, the string value is getting changed into an integer. Okay, and now if we write type of n, then it will write class int. Okay, we need to pass the number also. So you can see that it writes class int. Okay, now this thing can also be done in a single step only. Okay, by so this particular thing that I've highlighted is basically the is basically returning us the value that is the string. Okay, now if I write it here inside this int, so it will basically convert the given string by the user to an integer automatically just by one line. Okay, so basically we are just reducing one line of code, right? So the work is same, we are just reducing one line of code. So if I write 10 here again, it will write class int. Okay, so now basically we can take input from the user whether the number is even or odd. Okay, so the user will give us the number, and then our program will check whether the number is even or odd. Okay, so I think this is pretty cool. Now we can move on to the calculator part, like how we can create calculator with the help of uh, Python using just the conditional statements. So for calculator, we obviously need more numbers, and we also need to enter an operator, like what operator you need to perform on these two numbers, right? So what I can do is I can name this as n1, and I'll copy paste this, and I'll write enter n2. Then I will write op for operator. Okay, let me, I am it full only for more clarification, and then I'll take enter the operator. Okay, so let's see if our code so far is working fine. Uh, let's print n1, n2, and operator all together in one single line. And let's actually print operator here and n2 here. That way it will be more interesting to see. So this is another way of printing things. If you want to print multiple things with just one space, you can write comma separated variables or values. So if I run this now, it will first of all ask me to enter a number. Let's say I entered 10. Then it will ask me to enter another number. Let's say we entered 20. Then it will ask me to enter an operator. I'll enter uh, 20 plus symbol. Okay. Then it just prints us the whole expression, right? So our code is working fine. The main motive behind this much part was to check if the code is working fine. So print statements can not only be used for just displaying the output, but they are often used for debugging the code also. So debugging means to check where you are getting errors. So basically you find out by using multiple print statements that this much code is working fine, this much code is working fine. So print statement is also quite important for debugging process. uh, Now we can start with the main part, which is to write the conditions for our calculator. Okay, so let's begin with that now. So we have the two numbers, we have the operator. Now let's just think how we should implement our calculator. Okay, so I'll just give you a minute or so that you guys can think how you can implement this calculator. So just put your thinking caps on and l- uh, give the message in the chat section if you are able to think how this is working, how the calculator is basically gonna be made using just the if condition, if else conditions. Also, I actually have not told you Elif statements. So Elif statements will be used here. So just wait a minute before you think. So Elif statement is nothing but one second. This is another way of commenting, guys. This way, you are basically making the multiple lines of comment. So you just have to write three single quotes before the commented part and after the commented part, and this will mark as a comment, multi-line comment. Okay, so I want to show you the if elif statement. So let me give an example for that. Mm, okay, let's say a color is equal to input from user. Okay, enter color, and we basically want to check if the color is equal to red. Print great choice. Else, if color is something other than red, then print nice choice. Okay, and if we want to give more conditions, like if we want to print something specifically for yellow color also. Okay, we are already printing something specifically for red color, and for all the other colors we are going to basically give a standard answer as nice choice. But what if we want to give a specifically a specific output for a specific color? So we can write multiple statements, multiple conditions. Okay, so for example, if I want to write if elif. Okay, so if you want to write another condition after if statement, okay, then you use elif keyword. So the syntax is exactly the same, it's just that elif statement comes only after the if statement first. Okay, so if I write elif color equal to yellow, then print uh, okay choice. Okay choice. Okay, and for all the other colors you are just printing nice choice. Okay, so let me just tell you how this code is going to work. So first of all, obviously the if condition is being checked. Okay, so if let's say we entered red color only. Okay, so how will this whole code work? So color is red, and here also we are checking red, so it will simply print great choice and none other statement will be executed. Okay, only the output will be great choice. Now if we actually print if the user actually enters yellow, then what will happen? First of all, it will check here whether yellow is equal to red. If it's not, then obviously this statement will not work. Then what will happen? It will check here if the color entered by the user is equal to yellow or not. In this condition is actually true, right? So this statement will work and this statement again will not work. Okay, so this is how the flow works for if elif and else statements. Now again, if the user enters some other color like blue, okay, so this condition also becomes false, so this will not work. Then it will check if blue is equal to yellow, this also not works because this condition is also false. Then ultimately you have else block, so this condition is correct. Okay, now you can have multiple elif statements also. For example, if you want for uh, blue color also you want a specific reply, so we can write multiple elif statements. That's the purpose behind this. So print amazing choice. Okay, so if the user enters one second. Yeah, if the user enters blue for example, so it prints amazing choice. Okay, so what happened here? It first of all checked with red if the color entered by the user is red. No, it's not, so it moved on to the next elif statement. Here also the condition is false, so it moved to the next elif statement. Here the condition was true, so it just executed this line. Okay, and then it printed this. So this was false, so none of the statements under the if block worked. This elif statement was also false, so none of the statements under the elif block, this particular elif block worked. This particular condition was true, so all the statements under this elif block would get executed, but we have only one statement, so this print statement will executed, and again this will not get executed. Okay, so that's the whole workflow for um, this if elif statement, if elif else statement. Now just think how you can use similar implementation for a calculator. Okay, so we are already taking the correct way for the inputs. Now just take 2 minutes and enter what you think about this in the chat section. Come on guys, let me know what you think about this, how we can go further about it. Otherwise I'll give the correct answer in just a minute. So I think I can go further about this thing. So we can simply write like if operator is equal to plus symbol, then what we want to do, we want to print um, n1 plus n2. Okay, elif if the operator is equal to minus symbol, then we print n1 minus n2. Similarly, we will write this condition for 4 times. Okay, multiply and divide. And also we can mention all the operators that we are covering, so that it's more user friendly and more understandable for the user to understand. Understand. So, and we can write another else statement here. Oh, we need to change the symbols here as well, multiply and divide. And we can write else statement as invalid choice. Okay, if the user enters something other than these symbols, these 4 symbols, then he will be getting invalid choice as the output. Okay, so let's try to analyze first how our code would be working. So 3 inputs will be coming from here, then the operator will be checked if the operator is plus only. If the operator is actually plus, this will be executed, and other than that nothing will get executed. Okay, so the simply the addition of the two numbers will be printed on the screen. If the user entered minus symbol, so here the condition becomes false, so this will not work. This will be checked, this works, so it will be printed, the subtraction will be printed, and none other than that will be printed or executed. Now, similarly, if the symbol is actually the asterisk or the star symbol, which basically implies multiplication, then these two, the first two if and elif statements will be false, obviously, and they will not work, and this will work, and after that also of the statements will be working. Okay, and this keeps on repeating. And for example, the user entered modulus symbol. Okay, so this does not work, this does not work, this does not work, this does not work. We are basically not covering the modulus operator in our code. Okay, so simply the user will get invalid choice as the output. Okay, so I hope this whole thing is making sense to you guys. So now let's just try to run the program. Okay, so if I enter 10, 20, and let's say we enter plus symbol, so we get 30 as the answer. Okay, 30 as the answer. Similarly, let's check for other operators also. If we enter 20, 30, and we multiply them, then we get 600 as the answer. So our calculator is working perfectly. Now let's check for an invalid choice also. Okay, so 100, 200, and if I write modulo symbol, then it shows us invalid choice. Okay, so this is how basically your things are going on, how you can easily create a basic calculator using Python. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Python is simple. You just have to break your task into small parts, then achieve it in small steps, and thus you will at the end be finally able to solve your issue or solve your problem or solve your task. Okay, so everything is simple. You just have to focus and keep in mind what operators can be used, what is the proper syntax behind the things, so and how you should take input from the user, because if you are not typecasting the input for the numbers, then obviously you will be getting an error. Okay, so if I, let's say, I forget to typecast the n1 number, okay, the number 1, and if I try to run the whole program, okay, and let's say we are multiplying it, so we get something, one second. Okay, that's a wrong example. Just a second. Let's say 10, 20, and we are trying to add the two numbers. So you can see it says can't convert integer object to string implicitly. So it basically means the operation that you are trying to add the two numbers, but we are having one number as a string, one number as an integer, and we cannot implicitly change the string to an integer. So basically it means to say that they can not do it on their own. You have to do it, you have to mention that this has to be taken as an integer, right? So you have to add this here. Okay, so now our code will be working fine. You can see 95 is the output. Okay, so this is how you can create a basic calculator in Python. Now we will quickly move to loops. Okay, I'll explain for loop and while loop in a let me just explain while loop for now. Okay, so if I write while here, and I write colon symbol, and here I write another condition here. Okay, and then I write some statements. So statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, so on, statement n. Okay, so what really is while loop? Okay, so what really is loop first of all? So um let's say you have this thing, you want to print Python 10 times. Okay, you want to print Python 10 times. Let me comment this. Okay, you want to print Python 10 times. How can you do this? Okay, how can you do this? So as per our current knowledge, we can only write Python multiple times, copy paste the same command multiple times, and get the output for that. Okay, so let's say I wrote Python 5 times or whatever number of times. So this is the only way we know so far as per our current knowledge. But for shortening the code, for making the code much more cleaner, we have while loop. Okay, or and we also have for loop also. So there are two types of loop in Python: while loop and for loop. There is no do while loop as other languages like C++ have. We do not have do while loop in Python. We have while loop, we have for loop. Okay, so what really happens in while loop? So there is a condition that you give here. Okay, if the condition is true, if the condition is true, then these condition will work. Okay, sorry, these statements will work, they will be executed. These statements, all of these statements will be executed. Then the condition will again be checked. Okay, as soon as all the statements are executed, the condition, it will go back to this condition. It will check the condition. If the condition is still true, then again it will execute all the statements present inside the while block. Okay, while block. So again, after the statements are executed again, then again it will move back to the condition. It will check whether the condition is true or not. If the condition is true, then again it will execute all the statements. If the condition is false, then it will come out of this block and stop executing all the statements. Okay, then it will stop. Obviously this might be little confusing for now, but let me just show you by implementing this. Okay, so let's say we want to only print Python for 10 times. Okay, so I will create a variable uh, I is equal to 10. Then I write a condition here. Okay, so what condition can I write here? um I can write while I is greater than 0. Okay, while I is greater than 0, just keep printing Python. Okay, while I is greater than 0, keep printing Python. What now if we just execute this code? Okay, so this code will just keep on working and will never ever stop. Okay, if you notice, if you run this now, you can see the code is not stopping. If I hover over the run button, it is not letting me run because the code is not stopped yet. You might be not able to see that a lot of pythons are coming, but if I stop the program, then only this program stops. What's the reason behind this? Because what happens is, it checks, is I greater than 0? Yes it is. It executes the statement. Again it checks, is I greater than 0? Yes, it is. It again executes Python. Again, it checks, is I greater than 0? Yes, it is. It again executes. It will keep on doing it until I is not greater than 0. But we are not also changing the value of I. So it will endlessly keep on executing all the statements. Okay. So to avoid that, this is called infinite loop. Okay. To avoid this infinite loop, what we can do is, we can write another statement here, I equal to I minus 1. Okay, so I have written I is equal to I minus 1. Now what will this do? Let's first run the output. It printed the Python 10 times. Okay, now what's the difference here? So in this scenario, what is happening is, first, in the very first iteration is each time the loop works. Okay, each time the loop works, it's called iteration. So when I run the code for the very first time, I is equal to 10 and it is obviously greater than 0, so these two statements are executed. Okay, so first Python is printed, and then what happens? The value of I is decreased by 1. Okay, the value of I is decreased by 1, so the new value of I becomes 9. Okay, now since the code moves back here to the condition, so it checks, is 9 greater than 0? Yes it is. Then again Python will execute, and i's value will get decreased by 1 once again. Okay, so 8 now. Then again it will check, is I greater than 0? Yes, 8 is also greater than 0. So again, Python will be executed and the value will decrease by 1 once again. So this will keep on happening till I becomes 0. Okay, so let's say I is still 1. Let's say I is still 1. So Python will be executed for the 9th time, and the value of I will get updated and it will become 0. Okay, so now again it moves to the condition and it will see, is 0 greater than 0? Basically, I greater than 0? Now the value of I is 0. So is 0 greater than 0? No, it is not. Okay, so the condition will stop right here. Okay, the condition will stop right here and the code will not work again. So Python will not be printed and the value of I will not get further reduced by 1. Okay, because the condition got false here. Okay, so this is while loop. Similarly, we have for loop also. So I think we have 5-7 minutes. We can do it. So um, for the syntax of for loop, we have for, we have a variable name. Okay, variable name, and we have in and some iterable here. Okay. Now I'll explain iterable later, and then you have statements. Okay, some statements. Uh, So we have some statements now. So we have not done the data structures in Python yet, which is basically the list, tuple, and dictionary, which we will be doing tomorrow very briefly. Okay, very briefly, because we also have to work on a project tomorrow, which will be the website blocker. So it's gonna be a very interesting project. We will be tomorrow doing a very basic, we will touch the data structures very in a very basic amount, very less amount. Then we will learn little bit about file handling, and then we will move on to the project tomorrow. Okay, so everything required for the project will be pretty much that will be done today and tomorrow. Okay, so everything will be combined and a project will be made using that only. So tomorrow also just stay tuned, because it will be a very interesting project tomorrow. So for coming back to this for loop, so you have the statements here, you have a variable name, right? So let's say you have variable name as I, and for iterable, since we have not touched data structures of Python yet, we will only use a range function. Okay, so range is a function. So if I write 1 comma 10 comma 1, okay, if I write this thing and remove this and print I, so this particular thing basically means, like as the name suggests, it's a range. Okay, it's a range starting from 1 ending till 10 with the step value of 1. Step value means the difference between the two numbers. So if the step value is 1, so the range will be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, if the step value is 2, if I write 2 here, then the range will be 1 3 5 7 9. Okay, so this is the range function. Okay, so it's also kind of an iterable. It's like a list. Let's say its range is similar to a list. Okay, a list of numbers. Okay, and the range of the numbers is given here, 1 to 10 in this case. So you can assume that this is a list of numbers 1 3 5 7 and 9. Okay, this is a list of numbers that this particular part is expressing right now, because we have step value 2. Okay, uh, now what happens really is, for in the for loop, we have I variable. Okay, so first of all, when the very first iteration occurs, iteration again is when the loop runs, right? So when the first time loop runs, I will be equal to 1. Okay, then all the statements present here will be executed. So in this case we have only print I, so 1 will be printed here. Then it will move back to here. Okay, it will move back here, and then I will be equal to the next item in the list or in the iterable. Okay, then all the statements will be executed. So again, 2 will be printed, sorry, 3 will be printed here. Then what will happen again, it will move on to the next item of the iterable, which is 5. So all the statements will be executed for the third time, which is 5 here. So again, it will be checked, move on to the next item, and 7 will be printed. Okay, then again for the last time it will move on to 9, so 9 will be printed. And yeah, so and next time it tries to move, it says that the list has ended. Okay, the list has ended, so it cannot be equal to any other number or any other string. I cannot be equal to anything else, so the loop will stop here. Okay, so the loop will stop here. All right, so let's just run this and see ourselves. So you can see 13579 was printed. If I keep the step value 1, then it will go on till 1 to 9. Okay, so the value written here is not included. So if you mention the range from 1 to 10, 10 is not included. N minus 1 is included, so 10 minus 1, that is 9, will be included, but 10 will not be included. Okay, so that's the basics for loops. We have covered conditional statements, we have covered loops in briefly. Okay, and we have covered data types of Python as well, and some operators in Python. So for this session, that's all that we will be going to do. And the next thing that we will be going to do tomorrow is we will touch little bit of data structures of Python, that is list. We will be doing little file handling, and then we will make something out of it. That will be the project website blocker. Okay, so that's the thing for tomorrow. This is the thing that we had to do today, and that's all from my side. Now moving on to the doubts. If someone has some doubts regarding today's session, then they shall be answered now. So Rishabh Poria earlier said if n modulus 2 double equal to 0. Correct. That's probably for the odd and even number. Then Iras Mirza, I hope I have pronounced the name correctly. Um, he has said use operation condition in if elif statement, like if operator is equal to plus, so print addition. Correct. Mr. or Miss Mirza, you are absolutely correct. What you had suggested back then for creating the calculator is perfectly all right. And Lokesh Kumar is saying very nice session. All right, thanks Lokesh, and I hope you find this session informative. And again guys, if you have any doubt, just put it in the chat section. I'll be answering all your doubts now. Thank you. Thank you, Eras. um and guys, if you have any doubt, if you want to say something, just put it in the chat section. And yeah, don't forget to fill the feedback form for today's session as well.
Okay, so thank you, sir, for your time and for touching upon all the basics. I hope our attendees must have enjoyed and learned pretty much from it. And about the feedback form, yes, guys, please do not forget to fill the form. There's a section for the questions there too. So if you want our mentor to answer any of your questions, you can leave there that too. And with all the basics covered, we'll be looking forward to working on a project in tomorrow's session. Thank you so much for your time again. So that was
Yeah,
great.
Tanya, can you just share the screen for a moment? Share my screen for a moment.
I do not have an access to that, sir.
Someone who is yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So guys, if you want to install Python in your system, what you can do is just search on YouTube. You can check my name, Sahaj Oberoi. You can just open up the channel. Okay, so I am bringing pretty good content on this channel, and I have some Python basics videos as well, where I have basically also told you how you can install Python in your system. All right, so if you want to install Python in your system, so it will be here in this Python tutorials for complete beginners. We will try to add the link for this playlist in the description as well. If you want to brush up the basics that are taught today in this class, or if you want to install Python in your system and use Python idle. So because a Python installation will be required for tomorrow's class, because we will be using Python idle. So make sure you have Python installed in your system for tomorrow's class. And also, if you want to connect with me, you can search me on LinkedIn also, by the name of Sahaj Oberoi only, and that's the URL for this. And yeah, that's all I wanted to just say for a moment. Thank you. You can take over, Tanya.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me here.
So, okay, guys, that was it. The form, the feedback form is in the comments as well, and I'll be, thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time.